Audience feedback analysis using emotion recognition. Abstract image processing is the major rising technique in the modern world of AI-based systems. Emotion recognition is one of the topic inside the artificial intelligence machine learning techniques. Emotion recognition is basically reading an individual's mind and present mental state by analyzing the facial expression, body posture, and gesture and speech. By doing so, one can able to judge whether the individual is interested in the ongoing activity or not. The core functionality of the audience feedback analysis using emotion recognition is to capture and analyze the facial expression of every individual sitting in any seminar/talk/lecture/keynote and provide an analysis of the average emotional state of the gathering during or at the end. The primary objective of the proposed system is to provide the organizer or the administrator of the event with the actual and unbiased feedback by analyzing the same through the expressions of the gathering for the whole time or at some interval of time. Index terms: convolutional neural network, deep neural network, facial expression, frame extraction. Introduction. The facial perception were related to the chronicity, illness, and social competence. Emotions take an essential part in day-to-day life. People can recognize someone else's feelings and respond in a hasty manner with certain circumstances. For example, a judgment of a man using psychological study. Facial emotion recognition is a challenge because of its hazy, where features are effective for the task of which extracting effective emotional features is an open query. It is ordinarily utilized for security systems, mobile application unlocking systems as well as iris scan unlocking systems for high-tech security of latest tech, for example, unique mark or iris recognition systems, incompletely in light of the fact the machines don't comprehend the feeling states. We can also judge a man if he is convinced for the inspirational speech or not. Emotion is a conscious experience characterized by extreme mental movement and a certain degree of pleasure or disappointment. Scientific conversations have had different implications and there is no general agreement on the definition. The facial expression is a visible manifestation of emotional state, a cognitive activity, an intention, and represents the personality and psychopathology of a person. It also has a communicative role in interpersonal relations. Facial expressions and gestures are included in nonverbal communication. These clues complete the speech, helping the listener to understand the meaning of the words uttered by the speaker. Mehrabian said that facial expressions have a substantial effect on the listener. The body language of the speaker is 55% from the message, 38% is transmitted by voice, such as tone, intonation, and volume, and 7% represents the actual content of the message. The face of a deliberate feeling is to show a psychological picture of this feeling of past or speculation, which is once again linked to a satisfactory state of joy or dissatisfaction. In case there is a chance for that device collaborating, on the other hand, the machine learning using AI is effective in doing the job and there is a discussion in investigating human behavior and working in a similar manner. To do this, many imaginable ways we can be visualized using facial discovery to get a precise and accurate way to examine human feeling and behavior, which the famous company named Volvo developed a car that conducts job interviews in Volvo's AI stunt. Also, nowadays getting true and unbiased response by the people or gathering for any event organized is very rare. People pretend to the organizer something but inside the true feeling is different and is hidden to everyone else outside. Getting the knowledge of this true feeling is very important for the organizer to judge his/her performance or the performances made by his/her teammates. Without this, it becomes very difficult for the organizer to predict the updations or changes that are required for his actions to be better for the next time. Keeping in mind all the challenges, this paper presents a software application for audience feedback analysis based on emotional state of the gathering of people in any keynote/seminar/talk, etc., and is intended for the organizers to get the unbiased and realistic review of the event. This application has the ability to recognize emotions from user-captured images lived during a live or ongoing seminar or from any uploaded video stream. Depending on the facial features of the person in the picture, the application can describe its emotional state and generate an average analysis at the end of the event or even during the event. 2. Methodology. The complete process of generating the average feedback of the audience is divided into two different modules. 1. Extracting out frames from the live streaming or from any video stream and cropping out the faces of all the individuals in those frames. 2. Analyzing the emotion of each of the individuals separately from each frame and calculating the average emotion during the event. A. Facial detection from input. There have been many different approaches as methods, techniques, and algorithms for finding optimal, reliable, efficient and effective solutions for detecting and interpreting human faces in digital images. In 1960, after a cross-cultural research, Paul Ekman proposed the idea that facial expressions of emotion are not culturally determined, but universal, and defined 5 basic emotions: anger, happy, neutral, sad and surprise. He and Wallace v. Friesen adopted in 1978 a system, called FACS, Facial Action Coding System, for classifying physical expressions of emotions, originally developed by a Swedish anatomist named Carl Hermann Hjortsjö. They published an important update in 2002. Movements of individual facial muscles are encoded and they proved to be useful to psychologists and to animators. Using FACS, any anatomically possible facial expression can be coded, splitting it into specific action units, and their temporal segments that produce the expression. Many other researchers have used images and video processing to automatically track facial features and then to classify the various expressions. In general, the approaches are similar and search facial features using motion models of the image, optical flow, DCT coefficients, etc. Based on these results, the classifier is trained. The difference between existing methods is the set of features extracted from images and the classifier used, based on Bayesian or hidden Markov models. In 1990s, the research community for computer animation was faced with similar problems as in the days of pre-FACS, that there is no single standard system for animating facial expressions. Panzik and Forheimer noted that efforts were concentrated on facial movement instead on facial parameters. Because of this, Motion Pictures Expert Group, MPEG, introduced the Facial Animation, FA, MPEG-4 standard specifications for a standardized parametrization of facial control. The very first step for cropping the faces of the individuals in the gathering is to extract out the frames from the input feed. Without extracting the frames, getting the cropped faces of the people is a very difficult task. As the video also is a collection of frames shown at certain rate per second, extracting out frames is precisely a simpler task. The frames can be extracted by writing a simple frame extraction program in any of the programming language. A question that can arise is that how many frames will be needed for the process. Talking precisely, this is the decision of the organizer that of how much time he/she wants the feedback of the audience. Frames extraction can be done for the entire session of the event or for any particular interval of time as well. When the next frame is to be taken after a frame can also be set accordingly. In general practice, it is strongly recommended that the frames are extracted every second so as to get the maximum accuracy for detecting the emotional status of the gathering. After the frames are extracted, the next step is to detect the faces in those frames and crop them out for analysis. In this paper, the method used for detecting the faces from the input provided is the Deep Neural Network, DNN, algorithm of the machine learning practices. The choice came upon DNN algorithm because of many of the advantages it had over another learning algorithm. Firstly, the accuracy of detecting the correct portion of the face was best when we used the DNN algorithm as compared to other techniques and algorithms such as Haar cascade technique, Bayes technique, etc. Secondly, the number of faces detected by the deep neural network algorithm was the best as compared to all other techniques, as at once this algorithm was able to detect almost all of the faces in the frame. At last, the DNN algorithm, apart from other algorithms, was able to detect the faces of the people who were not also looking towards the camera or in the direction of it. In other words, people who were looking aside or somewhere else also were able to be cropped by the DNN algorithm, which was not possible using other techniques. These cropped faces of all the peoples repeatedly from all the frames are then stored in a separate folder and are used as input for detecting the emotion of each individual separately. B. Analyzing the emotion. To understand the emotions and feelings of others, a first step is to analyze facial expressions. This is not simple for a machine, which should be trained and taught a recognition technique. Any computer vision application starts with a pre-processing step, applied to the input image. Pre-processing involves removal conditions of light and noise, thresholding. Then the second step follows, the segmentation, extracting regions of interest from an image and isolating them to find objects of interest. For example, in a face detection system, we need to separate the face's parts from the rest of the scene. After obtaining the objects within the image, we will continue with the next step, extracting all the features of each detected object, such as surface, contour, model, etc. These features are called descriptors and are used for training. The proposed method was implemented using OpenCV, an open-source computer vision and machine learning software library. OpenCV becomes standard in this field, one of its main advantages being that it is highly optimized and available on almost all platforms. The analyzing algorithm behind OpenCV for the analysis of the emotion is the convolutional neural network (CNN) algorithm. 3. Structural architecture. The figure 1 depicts the structural architecture of the project. The stepwise procedure of the method proposed is as follows. 1. The recorded video file or the live stream of the video is inputted to the program. 2. From the input video, depending upon the administrator's need, the frames are extracted using the frame extraction program. The time duration between each frame can be set by the administrator. Also, the administrator has the option to limit the frames to a particular number as needed for analysis and evaluation. 3. From each frame extracted, the faces of each and every individual are cropped or extracted. It does not depend whether a person face is cropped from a frame, it will be cropped every time it occurs in any of the frame. This way every person's emotion at all the instances can be captured for the better analysis of the feedback. These cropped faces are then transformed to grayscale pictures for better analysis. 4. For each of the faces cropped, the emotion is classified and is stored at a separate location of evaluation purpose. 5. The count of each emotion is also to get the maximum time of the emotion that the gathering had during the event. This calculated emotion count is then displayed to the administrator in the form of bar graph showing the number of times of each emotion analyzed, and also in the form of pie chart for the administrator to get the average emotion of the gathering of the event. 6. Based on the calculation, the most occurred emotion or the average emotion of the gathering is displayed as the result of the project to the administrator. All of the same kind. However, there may also be missing values, which must be indicated in some way in statistics. Data sets usually come from actual observations obtained by sampling a statistical population, and each row corresponds to the observations on one element of that population. Data sets may further be generated by algorithms for the purpose of testing certain kinds of software. Some modern statistical analysis software such as SPSS still present their data in the classical data set fashion. If data is missing or suspicious, an imputation method may be used to complete a data set. In this project, the dataset used are 48*48 mm sized grayscaled images for people, and these images are used to train the machine to detect the emotion from a picture. The training dataset is taken in grayscale images because the faces cropped from the frames will also be grayscaled, and for machine feature extraction is much more easier and accurate for grayscale images rather than colored images. The images used are of people representing emotions. These images contain a huge range of ways in which a particular emotion can be addressed by the facial landmarks of the person. The bit depth of these images are 8 bits, and these images have a resolution of 96 dpi. For all the 5 emotions, around 24,000 plus images are be given to the machine for training purpose, and around 3,000 plus images are used for validation of the trained model. As it is a neural network program, the model is currently being trained for 50 epoch values. This epoch value can be increased to get higher accuracy if needed. The sample of these images is shown in the figure. For implementation. A dataset. A dataset, or dataset, is a collection of data. In the case of tabular data, a dataset corresponds to one or more database tables, where every column of a table represents a particular variable, and each row corresponds to a given record of the dataset in question. The dataset lists values for each of the variables, such as height and weight of an object, for each member of the dataset. Each value is known as a datum. Datasets can also consist of a collection of documents or files. The values may be numbers, such as real numbers or integers, for example representing a person's height in centimeters, but may also be nominal data, i.e., not consisting of numerical values, for example representing a person's ethnicity. More generally, values may be of any of the kinds described as a level of measurement. For each variable, the values are normally. These images represent the dataset of the emotion anger. Similarly, all the emotions have such kind of images as the dataset for the model to be trained. For each emotion there are around 4,500 plus images for training purpose so that the accuracy of the model can be maximum.